sale. And this was on the back of a statement that was also released by Rock City Hotel, which has been involved in this brouhaha, indicating that they were withdrawing their bid because they didn't want to be associated with all the negativity that was coming with the sale, especially because they felt the SSNIT had not fully engaged the public on the sale, which is why a lot of negativity was emanating from it, and so they decided to withdraw their bid. So SSNIT also decided to halt the sale. But organized labor still went ahead to initiate a strike yesterday, and we're told that across the country, hospitals were not working, the judicial service was not working. But yesterday, lectures did go on at the University of Ghana Legon campus, even though UTAG had also insisted that they were embarking on this strike, and they were making more demands. They were asking for the dissolution of the SSNIT board and management, and this caused the SSNIT, boss himself to speak on the matter. And so we'll hear from him shortly. But if you're watching us on Facebook, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and please share the link so everyone can tune in and also share their comments. The good thing is, while you watch us live on Facebook, you can drop your comments and we see it in real time, and so there's a likelihood that we'll read your messages, and very soon I'll be giving a few shout outs to some of you who are watching. But again, at TV3 Ghana on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. We're also live on DSTV channel 279. Let me introduce my guest to you this morning, and it's been a while we had him in the studio. He's back, by the way, Honorable Alasan Suyini, and he is the MP for Tamale North constituency. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm terrific. What about you?
I'm not bad at all. It's been a while. You've been campaigning, I believe.
Yes. I've been on the field every now and then, yes. But last Saturday I was here.
I noticed that you were on key points.
Yes.
But how's it going with the campaign?
Alhamdulillah, it's terrific. So far, so good. We
Yeah.
give Allah the glory, and we just hope and pray that the way we all feel about how this country is managed will translate into showing those who are responsible for the exit come December. And I can tell that many people, many Ghanaians, when you have conversations with them, when you interact with people on the streets, in the markets, in the trotros and taxis, you come to one irresistible conclusion, and that is people can't simply wait to cast their ballots. In fact, the other day something funny happened. I went for this occasion and I met a very high-profile citizen. I don't want to mention the field that the person worked in. And whilst we were going to serve meals, he whispered to me nicely, trying to find out why my party was opposed to the November date for elections. And then I took my time trying to explain with good reason why we're opposed to the November date. After my long tirade, all he said was, "Oh, I thought you guys would allow it. The sooner, the better."
Hey, okay. I guess you're in a hurry to vote, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's a good one. But, we're still going to be voting on December 7. We still have about 5 months, almost 4 months. We're inching closer to 4 months.
Right.
But we hope you've made your decision. If you're still waiting to hear something from any of the political parties before you make your decision, well, they're still speaking, so let's see how it goes. But also in the studio, we have a labor expert, very well respected and revered, Mr. Seth Abloso is in the studios. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Fine, thank you.
Are you also of the view that maybe elections should happen early enough so that we get it over and done with?
If it happens early enough, it will be good.
It'll be good? That means that you've made your decision already. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you who. Yes, you have made your decision.
Yes.
Well, let's quickly head back to the conversation we were having earlier about SSNIT. And we want to hear from the Director General of SSNIT, who granted an interview yesterday, and he was explaining why he thought it was unfair for UTAG especially to call for the dissolution of the board and SSNIT management, because he said that, of course, dissent is allowed, and so if other people have other ways of resolving the problems, the best thing to do is to engage, have conversations, and look forward into the future. And so he doesn't see why the board or management should be dissolved or should resign. Take a listen.
We are going to go back to the drawing board. The rationale at the time of lotting these hotels, and we lotted them with those in Accra, i.e. Labadi and La Palm being lot 1, lot 2 being the Cape Coast hotels, i.e. Elmina and Ridge Royal, and lot 3 being the hotels in the Western region. We've come to this point. We will go back and re-examine it. And again, as I said, this is an issue of stakeholder engagement. We've terminated the process. The stakeholders and ourselves will then sit down and we would see how we progress. We are going to go back to the drawing board. The rationale at the time of lotting these hotels, and we lotted them with those in Accra, i.e. Labadi and La Palm being lot 1, lot 2 being the Cape Coast hotels, i.e. Elmina and Ridge Royal, and lot 3 being the hotels in the Western region. We've come to this point. We will go back and re-examine it. And again, as I said, this is an issue of stakeholder engagement. We've terminated the process. The stakeholders and ourselves will then sit down and we would see how we progress.
Informed organized labor that it has terminated the sale of 60% of its stake in the hotels. At an emergency meeting held today, Monday, 15th July 2024, organized labor has decided to call off the strike. All workers are requested to resume work on Tuesday, 16th July 2024. We are giving SSNIT 1 month to engage organized labor to address all outstanding issues related to the management of our pensions.
All right, and so we're also hearing from organized labor who have indicated that they've called off their strike, and that's because they're giving SSNIT 1 month to address all the challenges that workers have in this country. And if that is not done, then they will take further action as well. That was Dr. Yalba, the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, on your screens earlier. But also joining us in the studio this morning is Nana Ohene Into. He's an advisor to Alan Tremating, who is the flag bearer, of course, a presidential candidate, hopeful for movements for change. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Very well.
All
Very
right.
well. God's grace.
It's good to have you in the studios.
Yes.
But if you look at what organized labor is asking for, and yesterday, Na Ayele Adefio-Setre, who's the PR for TUC, she spoke on that because she was asked what their concerns are moving forward, and if they're hoping that SSNIT can address these challenges. What are these challenges in particular that they look forward to having addressed? And she said that they want SSNIT to look out for their retirement benefits. In fact, she says we retire with peanuts, and so we want a restructuring of our retirement benefits so we can earn a lot more even when we retire. And we want to focus, she says that we wanted to focus on the strike to abrogate the sale of the hotels. And once that is done, they will focus on other issues as well. Mr. Belos, I want to start off with you, especially being a labor expert. First of all, listening to what the TUC has said and the decision as to why they decided to end their strike, is that good enough? Should they have continued the strike?
Thank you. Organized labor embarked on the strike for a specific stated reason, to seek the cessation of processes for the sale of the SSNIT hotels.
Yes.
So SSNIT says it has stopped. And therefore, going on strike beyond the announcement of SSNIT saying they had stopped would not have been justified. Yes. But there are concerns with the management of SSNIT and its ability to ensure retirement income protection for workers in Ghana. And that is why we need to have a conversation. In the 3-tier pension scheme we have now was introduced during President Kufuor's era. Agitation for reforms had led to the establishment of a Presidential Commission on Pensions, which the Venerable T.A. Bediako of NATS chaired. They made a number of recommendations. President Kufuor's government accepted almost everything. So 3-tier was instituted. there were further actions that should have been taken in restructuring SSNIT. It has remained unattended to as we speak. Yes. So going forward, we need to look at the reports and the government white paper on it, and all that is said, including unification of pensions in Ghana. For instance, in 2018, Vice President Baumia, addressing a committee to look at inequalities and inequities in pensions, was questioning why those who contribute to their pension in Ghana will receive less than those who do not contribute. And that is those on the colonial Cap 30. And he urged the committee that he was addressing to take urgent steps to address this. 2018, it's been 6 years. He was speaking in April 2018. It's been 6 years down the line. No action has been taken to address the inequities and inequalities in pensions in Ghana. So there is a lot of wahala to deal with.
But that's why many people are asking how suddenly organized labor seems to have found its voice and found so much power. Because within 12 hours, we saw that SSNIT was withdrawing its bid. Rock City was also, SSNIT was ending the sale. Rock City was withdrawing its bid. And so if they've had this power, why have they not used it all this while?
Someone asked, I think in 2009 or so, was addressing a pre-May Day lecture. And that is at the time Dr. Atuguba, now Professor Atuguba. He was asking what type of bitters, and that is a strong alcoholic drink, what type of bitters has been served organized labor. Said that a lot of things go wrong and the leadership never speaks. So now it appears like the scale has fallen off their eyes. The leadership of
a little too late?
Not late, but better than never. It's been terribly late, but better than never. Because you see, these hotels that SSNIT put out for sale, the matter should not have been dealt with only at the board level. SSNIT should have come down. SSNIT has a large membership, and SSNIT cannot engage the large membership to discuss issues. So representative sampling have been assembled in the past. SSNIT had been having what they call, well, you can describe it as an annual general meeting. And it was in La Palm Beach Hotel, where they present their annual reports and other documentation and have a discussion. It is not wholly satisfactory, but it's something that they were doing.
Did they stop?
Yeah, they stopped.
How many years ago? Do you remember?
The last time I recall, it was, if I recall correctly, it was Honorable Kwame Pepra, who was then the chair of the SSNIT board.
That's a while back.
Yes. So this has been this sale, and it's a major decision. It's been only at the board level. In fact, organized labor's representatives on the board have failed woefully to report back.
Well, if you
from the time the issue was tabled, they never reported to their constituents.
But if you listen to organized labor, they'll tell you that those on the board were still giving them feedback on what was happening. So which is which? Who do we believe?
If they were giving them feedback, this action should have been triggered long before now. Yes. If they were giving them informed feedback, and it's not just going to whisper that SSNIT says is selling. You write. You document and put and ask for guidance on how you move forward. But we don't have a record of any such thing. And but for Honorable Samoku Jetu Ablakwa, organized labor leadership would not have woken up from his slumber. And I find that very disappointing.
Very interesting. So if that's the case, I mean, now we're hearing from the Director General from SSNIT, and he says initially he took another position explaining why there was a need for them to go ahead with the sale, because he said they had invested some 200 million Ghana cedis into the hotels, hoping to show up revenue. That wasn't working. And so they knew at that point that they needed to sell off some of the shares of these hotels. Then all of a sudden he turns around. Yesterday we hear him say that, well, there are dissenting opinions. And so what they'll do is they'll go back to the drawing table and have conversations, which is why they have halted the sale. How do you juxtapose?
He's saying that calls for his dismissal
unfair.
Unfair. I think the appropriate thing he should have done was to have resigned yesterday. Not wait for calls for his dismissal to be made. Because he and the board chairperson defended the sale almost with their life. So to find that, and look, even for him, look at how he was appointed. Dr. Tinkran was removed. Some of us were expecting that anybody who would have been appointed would have been in an acting capacity. An advertisement would have been put out calling for qualified Ghanaians who are qualified and available to apply. The Public Services Commission would have looked at the applications, trimmed them, interviewed before an appointment is made. But he went straight there. There was no involvement of the Public Services Commission at all. But if you look at the dismissal letter for Dr. Tinkran, reference is made to the involvement of the Public Service Commission in his appointment. What about the Kofi Osafo-Maafo?
So they got it wrong even from the beginning?
They got it wrong from the beginning. Completely wrong.
Well, let me come to Honorable Alassane Suini, because again, you've listened to Mr. Bloso, and he thinks that even the way Osafo-Maafo was brought into office was wrong in the first place, and so he should have resigned. But he's also saying that if something is wrong, there's a reason they've been put in office, to fix the problem, which is what they're doing. And so they're going back to the drawing board to listen to, the views of other people, and then they'll move forward with a decision. What do you make of that?
Well, Bella, good morning to my senior colleagues on the set, and good morning to our viewers, especially the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. I think that with regard to the appointment of Kofi Osafo-Maafo, it's an issue that I feel we have overflogged. And it comes to one thing, and that's what was just said a while ago, that the processes that were used in appointing him were clearly flawed, and it could have only been motivated by one thing, and that is nepotism. That's the reason why. The laid down procedures were bypassed for his appointment. In fact, we even understand that there was some bad blood between, some workers, including himself, and the previous, director, over certain decisions that some of them wanted taken, and then the former director didn't also subscribe to. And maybe some of those decisions related to the sale of these banks. You can never tell, because the information coming out is that before his appointment, he was actually the one leading the negotiation on behalf of SSNIT, to sell off these hotels. So you can understand why he was very passionate, defending the deal almost with his life in the beginning. But what was interesting yesterday listening to him was when he spoke of how SSNIT has become better. And I was wondering, within which time space is he talking about? Is it the time that he took over, or the time that he and his colleagues had issues with the previous director, that this progress that he was speaking of has come? Because clearly, from the time that he took over to now, nothing significant could have happened. The only significant thing that has happened is the sale of these hotels, which has turned out to be a bad move, given their own decision to, abrogate the whole deal. Now, there are a number of lessons for me, Bella, in this whole issue. First, I think I need, like many others have done, to commend Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa for, never giving up on this matter and being the fulcrum around which all of this, matter revolved. I think that he deserved tons and tons of commendation for standing up, speaking up, mobilizing and organizing. He, you remember, led a demonstration against the sale, which was very well patronized. And that is what culminated into some of the actions that subsequently took place, leading to government's decision not to sell the 60%, its 60% shares in these hotels. So I think that we need to commend him and to pick a lesson from there, that sometimes all it takes is just one person. Sometimes all it takes is just one person to cause a change. And that one person may also have to recognize that sometimes it will not take a single outing. Maybe when you begin to speak, people may not be that willing to listen. You can be dismissed. But if you strongly believe that you are for the general good and you stay the course, eventually you will get the support that is needed to cause the change that you are seeking. And so let many of us, either wherever we are this morning, however frustrated we are with a situation, not think that we do not have what it takes to cause the change. Sometimes it just takes that one person and that, one conviction, that you will use to take many steps. Don't expect that one step will be enough to cause the change that you need. So we all have it in us as people to create the necessary change that will lead to desirable, results. And so let's have that confidence in ourselves. That's the first lesson for me in this whole, issue. The second lesson is that together, we are more powerful than our governments. Together. I mean, this whole notion that we have to wait after every 4 years to exercise our right to hold our government responsible must be diminished. We must begin to diminish that in us. We have more power than we think we do to stop our government from showing the level of impunity that it shows whenever we vote for people to form it. But over the years, we have not exercised that power. And so you will find out that government comes, government goes, they take decisions. We sit in our offices, in our homes, on sets like this, and we lament. And we sometimes act like we don't have what it takes to force them to change their minds. Can we imagine what we could have achieved with this level of solidarity among labor unions if it had started earlier?
But you see, the concern then would be that then organized labor should not have called off the strike. And I'm just reading a message. Abbas Danjuma Musa on Facebook. He says that they should have continued with the strike because they did not achieve their aim. The SSNIT board still has not resigned. And so that's the concerns that many people are sharing this morning, that why call off the strike? You've shown that there's power in numbers. Why don't you continue with the strike? Because, again, UTAG is asking for the resignation, of the SSNIT board and management. We should have held on to that strike to ensure that they go.
I'll come to that, Bella. But for me, that lesson should not be lost on us. Can you imagine what we could have achieved if we came together, labor unions came together like they did on this matter when we had to deal with e-levy? Because clearly, e-levy was that unpopular. It was not just an NDC or minority in parliament thing. Civil society organizations were against it. Labor unions were against it. But we allowed the government to push it down our throat. Many other things have, been undertaken by this government, sometimes using their numbers to bully the minority in parliament. Yes, we have a hung parliament, but they still have an advantage of one over the minority. And sometimes you have seen how they have mobilized their people to just, beat us to it. But where you have labor unions coming together to support a popular position, that will inure to the benefit of the general good. The government will have no choice than to listen, like we have seen in the case of SSNIT. So I think that all labor unions, civil society organizations must learn this useful lesson, that when something is unpopular and opposing it is in the good interest of the good people of Ghana, we should not be shy about doing so, because in some cases, I feel the deterrence is because it is assumed that it is of political nature. And so if maybe the NDC is fighting an issue that is popular, that is actually not in the interest of the masses. But then labor unions may be shy that, if we do, they will say we are NDC. Let us not be. It can be NPP in future too. It can be movement of change
or anybody else.
Let us be consistent, we can make this country
Let me pass on that question that I asked him finally to you. The concerns that organized labor should have still held on to the strike to ensure that, board and management of SSNIT resigns before they call it off.
Thank you very much. And today I'm really very happy to meet my very good friend and brother I haven't seen or connected with, Seth, for so many years. Yes, indeed. Thank God we're all still alive. Yes. Yeah, thank you. But before I go to your question, whether the strike action should have continued or not, let me just make a few points here. Because I think my brother Seth has actually gone into a lot of the technical details, which many members of the public may not be aware of. Even members of organized labor, a lot of workers may not even know. And I think that I'm very, very happy about that kind of education. Now, I see this whole brouhaha over the sale of the SSNIT hotels as only a symptom of a larger, deeper problem, one. And two, as a trigger of something that has been coming for a very long time to come. And what is that thing? That thing is the manner and the way in which very valuable state assets are disposed of and given to people with political connections, or people who are presumed or assumed or perceived to be coming from mainly a political perspective. So there are two things. Public assets. I mean, in the private sector, people trade assets and buy shares and sell shares all the time. And there is no strike action, or there is no. Sometimes you'd hear about a few workers within the company fearing that they might lose their livelihood and so on and so forth. But here is a case, we're talking about an asset which is not owned by the members of government. It is not owned by the people working for the state. It is owned by the people who contribute to that fund, workers. So obviously, you should expect a reaction. That is one. Two, Mr. Bloso was talking about whether this action is a bit too late. You raised that question.
Yes.
I think that it is a bit late, but also because, you see, this is election year. And what I see is that the government and some of the organized interest groups within our society, I'm not totally accusing organized labor on this matter, but the point is, I see some kind of a mutual blackmail.
How so?
Between government and some of the groups within society. Government will hold everybody to ransom for 4 years. And then at election time, come and throw a few things at you and say, vote for me. So sometimes some of the groups, like the workers group, they will all say, wait, don't let us worry. Elections are coming. So they also wait. And when it is about election time, they also throw in their demands.
Yeah.
And now government is pushed to the corner. Because you have blackmailed the people for 4 years, they also come blackmailing you. If you don't do this, if you don't increase salaries, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, you are going to go out.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is a very healthy platform for the relationship that is emerging between government and the people generally, and specifically some of these civil society groups. I think that this whole issue of sale of public assets and the interests that show up, who gets to buy what, is the big issue that government needs to address, that the people of Ghana needs to address, that all of us needs to address. Now, as I came, someone sent me a text message. I'm sure everybody is following this SSNIT issue.
Yeah.
And the person says, he just says they attempted selling / buying Accra Lawn Tennis Club 2. One day, they sent some people to come and take measurements and survey the area. But some members spotted them, asked them with whose permission they are doing that, and asked them to go and bring a letter from MOFA, I guess Ministry of Food and Agriculture. I don't know whether they lease that land. When they said they were under instructions, they haven't come back. So when people think that there is a perception that people in government are just grabbing juicy, valuable state assets, especially lands, and even business entities, it is a real concern.
Yeah.
So these issues come and go. But today we are using this attempted sale of SSNIT hotels as a platform for this discussion. Now, you ask, one, whether the SSNIT board and management should resign. I would say that if they have any sense of dignity, if they have any respect for public opinion and public sentiment, if they have any moral responsibility which they want to express to Ghanaians, then they should resign. Because you can't be in a public position, very high office, shifting and turning as and when the issues turn, and still keep your position. So on what basis, ethical, on what basis, in terms of principle, are we running our society? In Ghana, it doesn't even matter what anybody in public office does. Nobody ever resigns. I was watching this video today, right now. A Kenyan minister has resigned. And his case is that, I am sorry, we have not treated our people fairly.
Yeah.
We have dealt with our people as if they don't belong to corporate Kenya. They are not shareholders. So that we who have come into government, in parliament, in state organizations, with political power, ministerial positions, we have behaved as if we are the owners, and we have wreaked untold hardships on our people. I saw this video and I asked myself, when would one principled person who is in a very juicy public office pursue the issue of principle and ethics and send a signal that can trigger some change in our mentality, in our attitude to power and privilege? Because you see, it's as if now politics has become the shortcut to becoming a billionaire, especially for the younger generation who are getting into politics right from school. And once you get into that culture, look, it becomes very difficult to live a normal life. So these aggressive, insatiable acquisition of state resources and assets is not going to stop now if we don't take care.
Okay.
Finally, should the strike action continue? I believe yes.
It should.
Since it's become a situation of mutual blackmail, well, organized labor also have an opportunity to squeeze government where it hurts most. If ordinarily government will not even listen to overwhelming public sentiments on issues, and this government in particular, almost all the governments in the past, but some governments have been more listening. I can cite President Kufuor, I can cite President Atta Mills.
But you cannot cite the current president.
I cannot cite the current president, no.
He's not a listening
He
president.
is not a listening president. I have said this many times over. People have tried to defend it. Well, since people have their views about issues, I too have my views.
View.
Yes. You see, and the extent to which, look, I am sometimes, I'm caught in a certain fix. We are talking about a situation where we've gone through 32 years of the Fourth Republic. There were a lot of issues about NDC 16 years, about corruption, about this same sale of public assets, and so on and so forth. People had issues. Now, 16 years out there on NDC side, 16 years MPP, we are back to the same issues. And now NDC is also telling us, oh, we need change. What kind of change?
So
Change
the NDC is not...
Change, change for the same old stuff. What is new about John Mahama's leadership in terms of being a vice president? Because you see, I mention names, I don't even mention parties only, because now it's turning out that it is the issue of leadership which is causing us all of these difficulties. There is a situation where a leader will react and it will go through the system.
Yeah.
A leader may not react, same thing will go through the system. Now we're talking about between MPP and NDC, which one is more corrupt, which one is less corrupt, which one is more competent, which one is less incompetent, and so on and so forth. And I'm happy, Honorable, to hear you talking about change. What kind of change? Is it change just for a little less corruption? Or change that radically is going to affect the way we do things, like Alan is suggesting?
But Alan's a chip of the old block. And so
but whoever,
again,
who is not
talking about it,
listen,
he was also part of this same government.
So then we need an angel from heaven.
6 whole years.
So we need an angel.
So many things went wrong.
So
he remained in the party.
So we need an angel. John Mama is from an old block. He has even been president before, vice president before. Nobody sees anything wrong with that. He coming back.
Alan
He's not
minister, cabinet minister.
Do you understand the difference between president, vice president, and minister in terms of authority?
But he was a cabinet minister.
Do you understand? Let me explain to you.
Okay.
When the president is not in office for one day, is it the minister who takes over?
It is not, but if you're a cabinet minister, you're
Don't
also
say
very
but.
key.
Don't
No,
say
you're
but. Let
also
me
key
answer your questions
in the
and
advice you give to the
reason on
president.
the basis of your own principle.
Okay.
If the president is not in office on a particular day for 1 week, is it the minister who takes over? No. Now, when the president decides to sack a minister, can he sack the minister? When the president decides to sack the vice president, can he sack the vice president?
No, he can't.
No. It's not a simple cosmetic difference. It's a big constitutional difference. Both the authority and the extent to which you can go. President, vice president, minister is nowhere close. It's like day and night, even though you might be helping the president. So it matters much more who is president, who is vice president. Now, if somebody is minister, even in a team that is supposed to have failed woefully, I know in a team of 11, when the team loses, it is possible to pick one player. It is possible to pick two players. I think the last one is this guy called Kudus. When everybody said, oh, the Ghana team totally, everybody hailed one person. That one person is the same within government, which is a team. So let us not even dwell on that. I've dealt with this issue so many times, and I'm surprised that when people talk about the old, they don't include your mama, they don't include Baumia.
So
do you understand? So can we dispose of that issue properly?
If you guys watching, he's saying that, Banana, you are part of the problem because you brought a Akufo-Addo.
I brought a Akufo-Addo.
No, when he says you brought, I mean, I get it's in context.
Yeah, so
again, there was also advice given to Ghanaians.
Yes.
I can cite Dr. Nyao Tamaklo, for example, who had said in the past that bringing someone like, President Akufo-Addo was going to hurt us eventually.
But we are not discussing Akufo-Addo now. I understand.
You were part of that party.
But I'm telling you,
branded him and brought him, even though we knew that there could be challenges.
But I'm telling you that if somebody takes office, we don't even look at the party. And I'm telling you, it's not even the party now. President Kufuor came out of the same MPP.
Yes.
Do people have the same complaints they have about Akufo-Addo like they had about
Did you
Kufuor?
know that President Akufo-Addo was going to pose these kinds of problems and still went ahead to
I don't think that question even arises for our, discussion here. Because we've seen the outcome of the presidency of Kufuor. We've seen the outcome of the presidency of Akufo-Addo. So I'm saying, let's not even go into party. Let us talk about the individuals.
No. We cannot talk about the individuals without going into party, because again, it's the party that decides on who should lead them in the election.
Yes, and
that's the concern, that you all must have been aware of the shortfalls of the president and still went ahead and supported him.
You see,
Ghanaians had never experienced President Akufo-Addo as president, so they wouldn't have known his shortfalls. But you knew as a party and still
who could look into the crystal ball and decide what somebody is going to do tomorrow? Nobody could.
But people within the party are saying that they knew.
Which party has been able to do that successfully? Nobody has done that. So I don't even think the question is even fair.
You saw a first term and saw a second term.
No, but you see, don't make it like this is the first time that a person gets into public office and people have had issues. People had issues with Jerry Rawlings. People had issues with John Mahama. People have issues with Akufo. Even Kufuor, who is generally, people had issues.
They had issues with Mahama, so they gave him just 4 years.
Yeah, so why is he coming back? Have those issues disappeared?
Maybe before you.
But the point that I wanted to make was about...
You let him land.
The point I wanted to make was about the need for some real radical change. Because, you see, if we are going to get somebody to lead that change, it has to be somebody that the public itself can mark off on character, on integrity, on performance, on capacity, even before Alan comes close to. That's why I wanted to talk about this, close to vice president. And as I told you, the Constitution says if you are in a position of vice president, during election, once your candidate, the presidential, gets elected, the vice presidential candidate is also deemed to have been elected. That's part of the difference. So I am telling you that where we are, we're talking about change and the need for change. There is no single Ghanaian who today will not tell you that there is the need for change.
Yeah. All right.
There is cosmetic change. There is radical change.
Okay.
We are asking for a real radical change.
All right.
That will require a certain kind of person in leadership,
All right.
not a political party.
Before you come in, let me just also involve our viewers.
Yes.
So Money says that,
Yes.
Bella, please tell Nana that the change we require will be to hold our leaders accountable and prosecute them.
So
and then Enyana Mansa says that when the heat gets too much for Alan to handle, won't he run away as usual? Please.
Which heat?
Flatus says, I'm enjoying the conversation so far. Facts without emotions. For the protection of your dignity, Alan should have resigned and spoken of the ills of his government, like Nyaho Tamaklo. Ramsey Nyano is the one saying that.
He resigned.
Money need money.
Matter earlier or later.
He resigned after 6 years. Money says that.
But
So
who
why
says
are
the
you
time
telling
limit?
us to vote
Who
for Alan?
decides when Alan should resign?
Hold on, one more before you come in. Bella, so I think Nana is being dishonest. Alan took decisions and briefed the president on it in cabinet. These decisions were geared towards the president's vision of whatever policy they wished to implement.
What is
These
dishonest
decisions
about that?
Alan took also culminated into bringing us where we are today. The man should stop this. Okay, that's
So John Mama is not qualified, but Omi is not qualified. If these are the principles, then nobody is qualified.
Just 30 seconds. I think he wants to, but I'll let you come in. Just 30 seconds, please, because you are taking his time.
Oh, no problem. I'll try and manage. I mean, I think the verdict is out there that clearly Nane's goose that he has taken to the market this morning has not really been patronized by the viewers based on the text message. But yes, please. I wanted to actually agree with him on something, but because we are reducing it to 30 seconds, let me rather express
disagree.
Let me express my understanding why when he was speaking about leaders who are listening, he skipped President Mahama because President Mahama is his competitor in the next election. He's obviously supporting.
No, that's far from it.
No, but let me finish.
That's far from it.
I haven't made the point.
Issues that people have.
Please. Now, let me. You flowed very well, and we didn't.
Hold on with that. Hold on with that thought. Let Mr. Bloso come in, and then you come in and make this point. But Mr. Bloso, I mean, you listened to him.
Yes, but you asked if somebody raised a question about
Alan running?
the strike.
Oh, the strike, yes.
Being continued, and you raised it.
Yes.
Organized labor went on strike for a specific purpose. It's been achieved.
Okay.
So you can't continue. There will be no justification.
But aside of organized labor, which is UTAG,
yes,
they were the ones that were insisting that
they
want
raised
the board
the
dissolved.
question. Yeah, the board dissolved.
Yes.
But that organized labor needs to address in totality. So it becomes an issue again for organized labor. But organized labor can help push this dissolution if it withdraws its membership on the board. On the board of trustees of SSNIT, it has 4 representatives. It needs to pull them out, as well as its representatives on the National Pensions Regulatory Authority.
Yeah.
Because they are both failed woefully. Particularly for SSNIT, it does appear that the management was working without reference to Sam Capital's advice on how to deal with the bid. And that cannot be acceptable anyway. Organized labor, look, pensions depend on salaries, good salaries. Professor Yantia Moabedu, a committee was commissioned to look at Article 71 office holders' emoluments.
Yes.
There was a report in June 2020. And in the executive summary, she says she identified a yawning gap between the highest paid and the lowest paid public servants and urged government to take urgent steps to address the disparities, and even referred to how in the health and education sectors it was done during the President Kufuor era. And he said this should be done as a matter of urgency so that the workers will live and work in dignity. Please underline dignity. 4 years now, no action has been taken on that report. Organized labor is silent on that report. Although the committee worked with the labor consultant, who is the organized labor's director of research and policy. 2001, Honorable Honorable Yaosafo Mafu commissioned a forensic audit of SSNIT. The report was available in 2001. Terrible findings, where prosecutions were recommended. People were chopping the SSNIT money and misapplying pension funds like nobody cared. What he commissioned, those who did it was Deloitte and Touche, Worldwide Investments and other consultants. As we speak, no action has been taken on it. And what is interesting, the report was submitted to the Attorney General. And in Kufuor's tenure, where he says zero tolerance for corruption, the Attorney General beginning was Nana Akufo-Addo, who earlier in October or so before they won the election, had addressed a press conference with Honorable the chairman of the MPP then.
Mr. Freddie Blay?
No. Haruna.
No. Before him,
Not Haruna Ezeku.
No, he was a former ambassador to Canada. Honorable Odoi Sykes.
Okay.
Yes.
And at that time, the Serious Fraud Office had indicated that it was going to conduct on a forensic audit of SSNIT. They said, no. SFO's reports will go to the Attorney General, who will do nothing about it. And that they preferred a parliamentary probe into SSNIT. MPP won the elections. There was no parliamentary probe. 2 forensic audit reports were presented to government and the Attorney General. No action whatsoever was taken on it. And in there were persons who had been found culpable, recommended for prosecution, who were not even fit to hold public office. By Section 177 of the Companies Code, restraining fraudulent persons from managing companies. But some went as high as ministers of state. So you see what is going on? It does appear like SSNIT's money, because it belongs to all of us, belongs to nobody. So people can chop and go scot-free. Where is accountability? Where is integrity? That is what we need to bring back into public service. Look, there are institutions in the public service where workers have not got transfer grants for more than 4 years. Public service. And in what, if I refer to what Professor Yan Temo-Abedi's committee report was saying, what it meant then to 2020 is that there's no dignity in the living conditions of public servants. Meanwhile, we have a Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in this country. To what extent is it ensuring fair wages and salaries?
So is it their leadership as well that has failed them? When you look at organized labor as well?
No, it's a question of leadership, yes. Because this report I'm talking about, nobody in organized labor leadership, I'll be surprised if organized labor leadership says they haven't seen it. But when they went to Kwewu some time back to hold a national labor conference, the Secretary General was reported as saying that the president's pay is bad. There are certain public sector organizations whose chiefs earn more than the president.
Yeah.
But Professor Yan Temo-Abedi has told you, your people are not receiving what will ensure their dignity. And you are not talking about it. We are talking about the presidents. Where is our focus?
Well, to be fair, I do get that. But if you listen to organized labor, they'll tell you that they've also been very instrumental in halting or stopping the VAT on electricity, which came up at the beginning of the year or so. They threatened a strike that was halted. So they've been vocal in terms of cost of living allowance and all that. They've been vocal and they've gotten some results out of it. So we cannot say entirely that they have not done a good job.
No, there's a lot that they've left undone. And I'm saying salaries is a big thing. Because pensions depend on salaries. So when we are told that there is a yawning gap between the highest paid and the lowest paid worker, and that government should take urgent steps to address the disparities, and you don't urge government to do that, some governments will not mind. So that's the situation in which we are. But it's for leadership to draw attention to that recommendation.
Yeah.
And that itself can be a reason for action.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned something earlier. We were talking about even the board members of organized labor.
Yes.
And the fact that they were also not reporting back to their people, because if they were, we wouldn't have gotten here.
Yes.
There's one person, Evans Ibn Samba, who says that, good morning, please help clarify this for me. I thought the members of the board took an oath to allow discussions at board meetings to remain there. Would it not be a breach of that oath if the reps of organized labor took the information to their members?
No, those on the board of SSNIT are trustees.
Okay.
Yes.
What does that mean?
They are holding their positions in trust for a larger constituency. And it's important for them to bring the issue back. And I was saying that there is something wrong with how SSNIT runs. Because, okay, let's grant that they have oath of secrecy and all that. But I'm saying that there are several issues that cannot just rest with the board. Because we are members of SSNIT.
Yeah.
So they have to get back to us.
Okay.
Yes.
Honorable, so I'll let you come in, because you had wanted to touch on John Dramani Mahama and the fact that his name was missing on
now, because you made me to calm down.
So the heat has quenched it.
I will not start from that note, but I will end on that note. You know, I think I agree with Mr. Abloso when he makes the point that organized labor could have engineered the dissolution of the board, if for nothing at all, by first of all pulling out its members whilst applying pressure for other institutions with representatives in there to also do same. So I think that would have been a catalyst for government to be left with little choice than to dissolve the board. But be as it may, there's no one way of doing many things. I think that the management, like they explained yesterday, thought that this way, selling 60% shares, was the way to save workers' investment, according to them, because they were not getting good returns. I disagree with that. Many other people also disagree with that. And so it is good that they are listening, and they have been forced to listen in this case. But the problem will be whether or not they have any space in their thoughts to consider any other option. Because it seems that based on options available to them, they thought selling the 60% was the best way. Now it's going to be very difficult for them to recalibrate and see how they can make the investments into these hotels yield the needed returns for workers to benefit from it. And that is why it is important that even if they are not asked to resign or the board is not dissolved, we should encourage the culture of saying, look, thank you, but no thank you. I mean, this is the best way I thought I could go. And that's where you show some level of genuineness and principle. This is the way I thought we should go. If you disagree with me, I don't know any other way. And so I am giving you your job so you can find the one who will do it the way you want it done. That is how you show principle. And that's why I agree that even if they are not dissolved or they are not asked to resign, personally, based on principle, based on their integrity, they should have voluntarily resigned. But the bigger issue or the bigger picture is what, again, Mr. Abloso talks about, salaries of workers. And so with this newfound power that we have with labor coming together, I will expect that moving forward, that will be the next focus of these unions, they should come together and demand of government. I mean, we started this Fair Wages and Salaries Commission thing. I mean, it had its issues, but it was to a very large extent beginning to streamline, our salary structure in this country and to even improve upon the quantums that workers were taking home. And maybe if we had continued and coupled the increment in salaries with high productivity, we will not be where we are today.
Yeah.
And so I think that Labour has to focus on how to get government to up the salaries of workers, because that is what will eventually impact on the pensions that they take.
Okay.
But again, I agree with Nana when he makes the point about how we treat state assets. I mean, that is the bottom line as far as this matter is concerned. I mean, it has happened over the years, and it does not still make it right that it has to continue to happen. The fact that we allow these states, businesses and state interests in these businesses to be run down so that we can sell it to ourselves at knockdown prices, it's a blot on our conscience. It is something that we need to rise above. And that's why I've already declared my intention to support the private members bill that is being put together by colleagues, including Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, to ensure that public officers do not have the opportunity to purchase any public, assets. Because of the authority and the opportunity, I sometimes think that people deliberately just allow these things, even when they have what it takes to turn them around, to be run down so that they can argue that these assets are not doing well, and so they should be sold. And then when they sell it to themselves, all of a sudden those assets begin to yield results and to do well. And so you wonder if it is not intentional that these things be run down. And the issue of land grab, state land grab, I mean, we have about 80% public, custodial lands, if you like, and about 20% just public. And yet we are grabbing everything, especially the institutional lands. You have the prison service not spared, even the judiciary not spared. You have fire service, you have police service, you have hospitals, for God's sake. Hospital lands are being sold, and yet our population is increasing, at an alarming rate. And we have these institutions that in the past were put up and land banks created for them so that it could cater for expansion needs in the future. And we are not even expanding these institutions, we are rather selling those lands. I mean, it is just a blot on our conscience, and we must all condemn it. And for me, that is the bottom line. And I agree that we need leadership. We need proper leadership to help us stem the tide. And that is why in the previous NDC government, Professor Mills, President Mahama, they put a ban on some of these transactions, and in some cases retrieved some that were even sold. I mean, where the the Foreign Affairs Ministry is standing today was land sold to private people. It took President Mills and President John Mahama to retrieve that land, and now our Foreign Affairs Office serves all of us Ghanaians. Some people are working there who would have had no opportunity to even walk around that place, because you see, beware of dogs. So you're going owned by people.
If you should come back
and so power, I'm saying that it is possible. It is very possible for some of those ones that especially have not been conclusively dealt with to be retrieved. Even those that are conclusively dealt with, there are ways I'm sure that government will be able to retrieve them. And so you need
should come back to power.
You need a listening government, and that's what takes me to the issue that he made. Look, President Mahama was, I think that he will go down in history as the most vilified, leader in this country. You recall that he was so sensitive.
I would disagree.
He was so sensitive. You see, Nana, he was so sensitive to public opinion that even when his minister was heard on a tape boasting about how, or in fact dreaming, dreaming about how she wants to make 1 million Ghana cedis because of Ghana cedis. It was Ghana cedis. 1 million.
If she could make.
She was just dreaming about it. Because of public sentiments, President Mahama let her go. Look, when the National Service Secretariat, people started complaining about the corruption that was going on in there, President Mahama investigated it. Let about about almost all regional directors of national service were sent away, interdicted, and in some cases prosecuted. When JIDA came up, it was because of public sentiment. And he said, what is happening? He set up investigations there, got people to be punished. When Bas Brandon came up, he listened to public opinion and said, oh, people are complaining about Bas Brandon. What is happening? He asked his minister to resign. He got it investigated. Monies were retrieved. That is the kind of listening leader that you need. Bella, let me even give you. I'll come to Airbus, but let me even give you an interesting one. In fact, when a DCE stood in front of people and was addressing them, and somebody chuckled, and the DCE got angry and said, who said Tria? And the public was angry that the DCE had behaved that way. A listening leader like President Mahama sacked that DCE.
What about the Airbus?
How can you underestimate such a leader? Now, Airbus, what about Airbus? Absolutely nothing but propaganda. Tell me what President Mahama has been said to have done in Airbus. Nothing. It's just throw it there, Airbus. What? One thing that he did, according to all the reports that they are, one thing. Nothing. It's just, there was Ghana procured, an Airbus, and this was actually based on, competitors fighting. I mean, you have the Airbus and you have Boeing, and then they were fighting in the US about how they got deals and transactions in Ghana. And it turned out that the Airbus people in their statement said they worked through an official of Ghana. And in this case, in fact, it went on to even reveal the name of the person who, yes, have familiar relations with former President Mahama. But who doesn't? Bella, do you know the number of your friends or people close to your workers who use their close association with you to do things? Oh, Bella is my friend. I mean, so if they go and do something that is bad and they are later found out, one, you don't disown them as your friends, but you can say you had no idea about what happened. So what is with Airbus? Absolutely nothing but pure propaganda. That is why I say he will go down in history as one of the most vilified leaders, because anything that looks scandalous, they throw at him without evidence, and nobody actually asks them to produce any evidence.
So Mohammed Hadi says Alan has very good communicators. I just hope we'll look beyond all the existing political parties. Amade Hermosa says Alan all the way. He's the most credible and honest person amongst them all. Then Money comes in and says that, please ask Nana Nto, will Alan prosecute Akufo-Addo? Well, the Constitution protects him as president.
Well,
but he says that for a period. Always. And he says that he prosecutes Akufo-Addo and all the ministers that are involved in the millions of scandals. The butterfly should do something. What's your response to this?
Alan has already declared and published his great transformational plan, which also includes his policy perspective on governance. Corruption and the fight against corruption is number one. And this is what Alan says. He said, I will put myself in the spotlight first. Let Ghanaians x-ray me down to my bone and marrow.
Okay.
And they will find that Alan is never have been corrupt, is not corrupt, and will never be corrupt. Now, this is a very serious statement, because you see, anybody who knows Alan's kind of politics, people even complain that he doesn't talk too much, and he doesn't, for strategic reasons. As far as Alan is concerned, deliver with your character, deliver with your performance, deliver with your track record. So Alan says, I can be trusted to fight corruption because I am daring everybody who doubts this. And I'm encouraging everybody to dig into my deepest past until present. So that is the first assurance Alan is giving everybody. Secondly, he says every action that has been taken, especially that looks like a smell of corruption, will be totally investigated and dealt with according to law. And in some of these cases, the law will require prosecution. Now, if you know Alan, and I can give you my personal opinion and verdict, one of the reasons why it took so much time and a lot of the people in the party were still hesitant about going for Alan and getting him, Alan is too strict. Alan is too this. I mean, that kind of gossip is all over the place. You know, somehow, Ghanaians don't seem to really love leaders or people who would want to demand a certain level of discipline.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of us who have worked closely with Alan, from time to time, even complained. But eventually, Alan has been able to let all of us who be very close to him understand that, look, this is the best way for us to provide leadership. Otherwise, we are just not going to get out of this mess. It just has to start from the character, from the heart. And then, when I spoke about Alan's leadership, I mentioned a couple of things. I didn't just talk about listening. As for the listening, I gave only one or two examples. It is not because I thought President Mahama is not a listening government that I did not include him. I mean, if you have to make a case and you want to give examples, I mean, you cannot cite all the cases.
Oh, but there are not many, so...
No, but at least I gave you two.
If you didn't intend to leave him out, you could have easily just cited him.
I did not. I want you to believe me, you know.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the leadership that Alan is talking about, it is critical and needed because we have seen the two key contenders in the topmost leadership positions to date. And I don't think that as adults, people are going to change overnight. In politics, I know people do a lot of packaging. I have suggested that for once, let us look at the candidates who are presented to us just as raw the way that they are.
Okay.
It is my business to do packaging. But if you realize, in a lot of the things I say about Alan, I talk about what people already know. And I talk about what people can go and check. When I talk about his integrity, I tell you, go and check. When I tell you about his performance, Alan has never been vice president before. He's never been president before.
Okay.
As minister, in fact, even outside of government, 2012, Alan is able to spearhead a whole policy architecture that is set to change the economy of Africa. Not just Ghana, the economy of the entire African continent. Not vice president, not president.
But the entire continent.
The entire continent. If you have Africa Continental Free Trade Area, see, people downplay some of these things. And we are Ghanaians and we are Africans. And we are looking for an economy that can support proper wages and salaries.
All right.
You can't use just politics and industrial action to increase and improve working conditions. I agree. As for the disparity, within the context of whatever economy we have right now, we need to improve it. But medium, long term, the real solution to meaningful wages is an economy that is totally restructured.
Okay.
Exactly the way Alan has put forward. That's why he says, I am not going to give you manifesto promises and slogans. Yesterday, I was on some program on a radio station about this 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
I said, look, when Alan said, Bawumia said he rubbished 24-hour economy, then Alan said, no, if you don't see anything good about 24-hour economy, then maybe you don't understand. But 24-hour economy is not just a slogan. It is not just the manifesto promise. What do you do? And I pointed out, look, already, there are sectors where you can't avoid having a 24-hour service. Hospitals.
Yeah.
You can't avoid it. The police. They are working 24 hours. At the harbor, a ship arrives midnight. There is work to do. There are people doing it. But where a full 24-hour economy is operating, in Japan, in China, in Europe, North America, Canada, and the US, they don't even talk about it. It just happens. The thing that you will do is what will determine whether your economy by itself, by its own forces and energies, is operating 24 hours or not. It is not a slogan.
So Mahama should stop slogan.
It is not a slogan.
Make it a slogan.
It's to stop sloganeering
Right.
and show us.
I'm happy you have endorsed the policy.
Yes.
It is the game changer.
Yes.
But he says stop sloganeering.
No,
it's not sloganeering.
And anyway, we have to go. Unfortunately,
when you have shown people what it takes, I met some of my NDC friends and say, oh, Alan's great plan is great. Why don't you just hand it over to NDC so that we can implement? I said, what? And I was quite surprised.
Really
no. Let me say, oh, yes, who was this? I'll remember his name, but I'll tell you.
All right.
Very prominent member of the NDC.
We have to wrap up, but quickly.